I think it might be time to dust off some of the things that I have never opened and I've had for years and get back into the creative mood with paper. Good morning, everybody. It's Stephen here for Bland Designs, and this is vlog number 101 for January the 7th, 2019. So my first vlog basically of the new year. And I hope everybody had a great New Year's and Happy New Year and all the best for what's ever ahead. So let's jump right into today's topics. Current project. Well, I'm working on a lot of different things. One of the things I'm working on is a new segment for my vlog. Previously I was doing what's in my drawers. Well, I've run out of stuff to talk about and show you there. And then I've run out of inspiration tips too. So I've decided to create two new segments later on in the vlog. And one of those has to do with making an album. Something like this. I made this some time ago. I used Graphic 45 and I think I used the Heartfelt Creations album kit to make this, and I haven't done an album in a long time. So I've dug up all my Graphic 45 sets, I guess. I've got a lot of them that have never been out of the package, and I've got a new what do you call it, foundation for doing these albums from a company called iCraft, which is a relatively new product being brought into our local scrapbooking store here in the area, Class Act. Excuse me, frog in my throat. And I thought I would take you week by week through my progress in creating one of these albums. It won't look exactly like this, of course, but it will still be of this style. And I just thought it might be nice for you to watch the process. So each week I will do just a little snippet of where I'm working, at what point I'm at with this kind of album, and hopefully you'll find that interesting. Also, I've added another new segment, as you're going to see today, which talks about how I got into scrapbooking, which has led to everything I've done ever since. And I'm taking you through the evolution of my skills, I guess, as a scrapbooker and a paper crafter and into mixed media. So I'm going to show you some old things from almost 20 years ago that I started with, and we'll see what happens from there. So I hope you'll find that interesting as well. I'm also still working on quilts, of course, and I'm working on my show quilt right now. Now, why I call it a show quilt is because my guild is having a quilt show in November of this year. And they've already issued us what they call the Show Quilt Challenge, whereas they give us a half meter or so of fabric, and we have to use that fabric as the focal point of our quilt. And so I've designed my own quilt, and this will be a little difficult to see. I did an electric quilt, and this is my design. And the fabric that they gave us is the butterfly fabric that you see throughout in here. This is a little bit of an unusual design, and I'll show you what one of the blocks looks like. There are 16 blocks. 4 of them will look like this, and you can see the butterfly fabric. It's really beautiful fabric, is the focal point. So as I said, there'll be 4 blocks in this color wave, and then there'll be 4 blocks in a complementary color, and then back and forth. And once you put it all together, it's going to look something like this. At least that's my plan for now. So I'll keep you abreast of my progress with that quilt as the year goes on. This is something that I'm being very careful about making. I'm making sure my points all match up, all that kind of thing, because it is a show quilt. So I want to put my best foot forward. I'm still working on the Scrappy quilt. I have not shown that to you. I'm doing the free motion quilting on it right now. It's actually not free motion, it's more router foot quilting. I've ran into a couple of snags with that, but I'm looking at that quilt as more as a practice for free motion quilting than anything else, because it was made from scraps after all. And we'll see how it turns out. It's not going to be by any means perfect, but that's why I have to practice. Now, we had my monthly art journaling class on yesterday, Sunday afternoon, and we did shadow box, what I call shadow box canvases. And basically what that is you take a canvas and turn it backwards. And so, you can see the frame and you work with that. So it's a small shadow box. And here was my effort from yesterday, and I'm kind of happy with this. This turned out better than I thought. And a piece just dropped off it. I don't know where it came from. Okay, anyways. This is just made up of a whole bunch of stuff that was in my stash and some colors and some paints and things like that. Try to get the glare off. Not doing a very good job. And I'm really quite happy with this. The other ladies in the class, they all did a fantastic job. For many of them, they had never done a shadow box canvas before, and so it was something new and a little scary, I think, at first, but they're a great group. They love to experiment, and they did, and they came up with some sensational stuff. One of the pieces, one of the ladies actually didn't do it on a canvas. She had been to a dollar store and got sort of an unpainted, what looks like the frame for a birdhouse, and did sort of a tunnel book effect in that, and she put in lights, and it's fantastic. Which basically, she's jumped ahead of me, because I was thinking in March's class that what we would do is a found object alteration kind of a thing. I don't know what to call it. And for example, if you saw Stephen and Walter live yesterday, I talked a little bit about this and showed you my shoes that I'd done a year or two ago, where I took an old pair of high heels and altered them using the techniques of mixed media and stuff from my stash. So we're going to attempt something like that in March. February's class is more a free-for-all. Every other month we have a sort of an open class where people can work on whatever they want to work on. As it stands now, basically every one of the classes is sort of like that, with me just making a suggestion. But that's what they want, and that's what they like, and I'm more than happy to accommodate whatever. So those were things. Oh, and also at the class, they all brought their ATCs, and I've shown you these kind of things before. And so here's the latest ATCs. I think it was any theme they wanted to do. That one's by Darla. Very nice. And this is by Anne. And this one actually opens up. Has some text in here. And I think that was, yeah, that was Joanne. And who's this? Caroline. She used a foil technique for the background on that, so it's got kind of a shimmer to it. And then we have Pat's. And Pat's is a little appropriate for the new year. I resolve to be, and she's got different things: mindful, grateful, creative, happy, kind, and there's a little spinner on here as well. So the idea is pick your fate, kind of a thing. And this one's called Celebrate, and this was by Gina. And this one, see if you get the humor in this one. This is by Kristen. And I think this one is hilarious. Do you get it? Sock monkey passed out in front of a glue bottle. That's a bit of a tongue-in-cheek. So I thought that was really cool. So these are going on my wall of fame later. After the vlog is over, I'll get those pinned up, and that's great. Just love what they do. And they so graciously make an extra one for me as well, because I actually don't make ATCs. And I've talked about that before. Not because I have anything against them. It's just something I don't do. Just like that. So, okay. Moving on. So, YouTube channel of the week is not a crafting one, not a quilting one. It is called Tips for Travelers. So check this out. If you're planning a winter vacation and it possibly includes a cruise, then you'll want to check out this YouTube channel. It's called Tips for Travelers. And I've been on many cruises in my time, and I found this website really helpful. He tells you about the things you should be aware of when you take a cruise. He talks about costs. He talks about hidden things that you might not know about cruises. And generally, he gives you some of the best advice, in my opinion, that you can get about cruising. If it's your first time cruising, or even if it's your 10th time cruising, I think you should check out this site, Tips for Travelers, because I think you'll definitely glean some very interesting facts that are going to help you plan your next cruise tour. So that link is listed below in the resources, and also Stephen and Walter Live is listed. We've had some good luck in the last 2 weeks. We have not frozen up, which is great, and even this week my iPad did not fall off the counter, so everything went very well with that. The Idiot Quilter, episode 36, my projects for 2019, I did that last week as well, so that's up and available for you. And this week's book as well is there, and we'll come to that in a moment. So, what's pissing me off this week? Okay, the frustration that one feels with customer services. We've all been there. We've had a problem with a product we've bought, a service that we're expecting to get, an overcharge, whatever, and we've had to call the customer service department of whatever company provides the service or provided the product, and we all get the runaround. Well, if you remember, last week I was telling you about my points situation on my PC MasterCard, that, you know, someone had cashed in 290,000 points. I was trying to get them back. Well, I got them back. At least I thought I had gotten them back, because they showed up back in my account. But there was no explanation, no, little announcement that they had solved the problem, so sorry, here's your points back, kind of a thing. So we decided on the weekend, when we were grocery shopping, that we would use some of our points towards that. In fact, we intend to use up all of the points. I have over $300 worth of the equivalent in groceries that I can use. And rather than sitting on them, in case somebody else tries to run off with them, I'm just going to blow the wad. So we went into one of the grocery stores that accepts these, and we only bought like $17 worth of stuff, and you can only use the points in $10 increments. Okay, so I couldn't say to them, use $20 worth of my points and they would give me back $2 and something, the difference. No. So I went in, and just as well that I did this, I went in and said I'd like to use $10 worth of my points put towards the purchase price of what I've gotten. Yeah, it came up deactivated. I went, what? So she just tried again. She says, no, it says it's deactivated. And I says, well, I have no idea why, but I said, whatever, that not her problem, the checkout person. So I paid the money and off we went. Went to another store and we tried Walter's card, because Walter's card is tied into our point system. It's joint. He had the same thing happen to him. It said it was deactivated. So we're a little ticked off at this. So we came home and we checked on our accounts online. Now I had disabled a setting for a card that was in my account, but it's not one of my cards. I don't recognize the number and I can't get rid of it. So there's a little checkbox you can check that says earns points but cannot basically redeem them from that card. And I thought, well, maybe this has something to do with why mine has been deactivated. So, and Walter had done something similarly with the app on his phone for this same procedure, the same card, right? And so we put those back to where we could redeem points on them, went to another store and went to customer service and asked them if they could see if we could use our points. Nope, came up deactivated. So I had to contact the company. I was not happy. I'll tell you that right now. The guy I got as customer service could do just too little for us. Yeah, I know, his hands are kind of tied, okay? He's just someone on the phone. So he says, well, he'll put that through to the people that would investigate it and look after it, and here's your case number. And I said, now I'd like to talk to a supervisor, please, someone that has more authority than you do, because, and I explained to him why I was upset, And he also told me that, oh, I see you already have a case that's under investigation. And I said, well, I thought that was closed because my points were back on my, you know, on the account. And like, he was, of course, completely lost. And he didn't want to give me a supervisor. Oh, his supervisor was on a long call. That's what he's telling me. And I says, oh, wait. He goes, well, no, he's on a long call. I said, what's his name? He gave me a name that I had to ask twice how to spell, because I have never heard of a name like this before. It was something like Jahora or something, Jhora or something like that. I don't know. And he said, so I've put this at a high priority. I said, well, thank you. Put it at your highest priority, because I need to talk to somebody about the situation. Of course, I get the standard, I'll be contacted within 2 to 5 business days. Of course, that was Friday afternoon, right? So Saturday and Sunday don't count as business days. So I wait this week to hear from them. In the meantime, I do have the address of their head office. I'm going to write a very extensive letter of complaint and let them know about everything that I've been going through and the whole bit. And then actually, ironically, a guy was standing in behind us in the line up at the grocery store when my card said it was deactivated, and he said he's had the same problems to the point where he cut the card up and got rid of it. He wasn't dealing with them anymore. So if you've got a PC MasterCard and you collect points, and this would be more Canadians than Americans, of course, or anybody else, watch your points, because this company is horrible, and their customer service is horrible as well. I mean, before you even get a human being on the line, and this is not unique to this company, it happens with all companies, you go through umpteen million messages, you know, like push this button for this, push this button for that, and then there's sub menus on top of that. It takes you 5 minutes or longer to actually finally get a connection to a human, and then you're often put on hold because, you know, they're experiencing higher than average volume of questions. They say that instantaneously on all of them now. So anyways, and this guy, he just could do too little for me. You know, I would think, I don't care how large your company is, the basis of your company, the basis of your profit margin are customers. Your biggest asset is your customer service. If people are happy with the way they are being treated, they are going to become loyal and they are going to support your product. It's not rocket science to figure that out. So why is it that these companies all treat you like dirt? Now, one of the reasons they treat you like dirt is, I suspect, especially in the case of PC Financial MasterCard, that they outsource their customer service to places like India. You know, I mean, I just told you the name of the guy, and although the one I was talking to did not have a heavy accent, he had an accent as well. They don't care. They're way over thousands of miles away from us here. They're in a different country, different attitude about things. They're just working a job. They have no interest in your life whatsoever or in helping you. And they have scripts in front of them that they read. And if you go off the script, if you ask something that's not in their script, they don't know what to do with you. So next thing they're trying to do is get you off the phone as quickly as they possibly can. So that's what's pissing me off. You just don't get customer service anymore. You know, on the weekend we went to some quilting stores in some little places about an hour away from us. You walk into those stores, they're mom and pop stores, and you get the personal touch. You have a conversation with the person working there. They can't do too much for you. They just, you know, they're right there to help you every step of the way, because they know if you're coming in, especially as a brand new customer, that if they don't send out a positive vibe to you, you're not going to come back, and that's going to cost them money. But these big corporations don't care. That's the problem. They're just too big for their britches. And it's frustrating. And the frustrating part about it is, who do you go to get help? Who do you complain to? You're left out on your own. So that's the situation I'm in right now. That's what I'm pissed off about. And I'll let you know what happens with this situation. Okay, moving on. So, what's new? Well, I just mentioned that we had been to a whole bunch of different quilting stores we'd never been to. A little ways from our area, not that far. But Saturday wasn't a bad day for going out to drive around, so we did. And I bought a lot of fabric, and I bought a lot of patterns. So, I will show you some of the fabric that I picked up. Oh, it's a big road. All right, these 3 fabrics. Aren't they pretty? These 3 are going to go together, and I'm going to create this with them. It's called the Road Trip Bag. The pictures on this don't really do it justice, but is that the right one? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. It's a bag that is like kind of like a small duffel bag, but it has nice square sides on it, and it zippers up, and it's got some interior pockets in it as well. And I think it's going to look really cool in those materials. And I'm also going to make, to go along with it, what's called a dope bag, I'm not sure which. Basically a man's kit bag. And I saw this in another quilt store actually made, and they said pattern was available. So I asked them about the pattern, and they said, yeah, it's a free download. So they told me where to go. I found it, and I've got the instructions. Doesn't look too hard, but I think it'll be a nice companion piece to the other bag. And what I want it for is to put my scissors and things like that when I go to a class or a retreat. They'll all fit in there. I've got other pouches that I've made, but they don't have that wide bottom on them. So they're more like a sack. And I just thought this would be a nice combination with the bag as well. Then I bought, now these I did not buy, I bought at my regular, at Ultimate Sewing. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with these yet, but gray seems to be the color. Everybody's into gray lately. And so I got these, and I'm not sure what I'm going to make out of them yet, but I got a meter of each of them, and it might be a quilt, it might be a tote, I don't know. We'll see. And then I am a sucker for blues and purples and things like that. And I saw this dragonfly print, and I thought these would go nice with that. So again, actually I might make the bag out of these colors, I don't know. But it's all going into my stash. Can you have too much fabric? No, you cannot. I also bought a whole bunch of what are called fat quarters, and these, okay, and they're all in shades of blues and teals and things like that. And my idea here is I've been taking some fat quarters and I've been embroidering birds and probably do some butterflies and whatever onto them in the center part of the fat quarter, and I think that will become a quilt eventually. With each panel, we'll have in the center of it an embroidered image. That's my idea. And of course I'm keeping them in the shades of blue because I love blue. Simple as that. And I got a few patterns as well. Just because I thought they were really interesting. This one, the Country Star Barn Quilt. Apparently this is this a paper pieced kind of thing? I think it might be a paper pieced pattern. No Y seams, which I'm still not sure what a Y seam is. I just know everybody hates doing Y seams. And now I got looking at this morning. I'm not sure why I bought this one. Because I like the colors in it, but I'm not that fond of the design. I'm thinking that in my shopping, I grabbed the wrong pattern. I don't know, but I have it, so we'll see. And then this just makes a very tiny little wall hanging, but with houses. And I've seen a lot of full-size quilts with this idea of these houses and the blocks, and I find it kind of intriguing because you can basically use up your scraps to create the houses. But I thought I'd start small. So this is just a simple little wall hanging. I think it measures I don't know what it measures. Oh, 18 by 24. And I thought I'd try it, see how I like it, and then if I decide, yeah, this is kind of cool, I'll get another pattern with houses or even use this one and expand it, make it into a full-size quilt. We'll see. Got a lot of plans for a lot of projects, and who knows how much of it I'm really going to get done. I'm sorry about the glare on my glasses. Something has changed in this room. Just let me go down a little bit. Hope that's not very much better. But anyways, okay, just bear with me on that. So I had all of that, and I guess that's all that's new to show you today. So that takes us to book review. This is an old book. It's by a company called Memory Makers. I don't think they exist anymore. It's called Creative Paper Techniques for Scrapbooks. More than 75 fresh paper craft ideas. And as I said, it's by Memory Makers. And it has a lot of ideas for what you can do with your scrapbook. And you see I've marked a lot of pages here, and I've probably tried most of those techniques because I've had this book for a long time. But I thought this was kind of appropriate to talk about today, given the new segment about my scrapbooking evolution as well. Because I used to buy, when I first got into scrapbooking, a lot of these kind of books to give me inspiration, to give me ideas. I was pretty new to the whole idea of scrapbooking, so I learned techniques this way. And this is a really good book. In fact, most of the books that were made by this company, I have quite a few of them, were all very good. But I think that company is now out of business. However, I did look this one up on Amazon, and you can still get it. And on Amazon, the price was, let's see. Good. I did not write down the price of this book. But I do have a link to it. Now, it says on the back of the book, this was $35.99 when I bought it, Canadian. But I know on Amazon, it was less than that, a lot less than that. As a brand new book. I think it might have been $20. It might have been a little less than that. So if you're interested in this book, you can go to the link below and check it out for yourself. But it is a good book. Okay, so how did I get started into scrapbooking? Well, I'm going to tell you that story, but I did it as a separate little video clip, and I'm going to insert it right here. So this is a new segment on my vlog, and I've decided to go down memory lane and talk about my early beginnings into the world of crafting. I've always been a crafty person, and I've always done lots of little projects throughout my life. But in 2002, I discovered scrapbooking, and I've never looked back since, and that has evolved over time. So over the next few vlogs, I thought I would share with you some of my memories about my early days in scrapbooking, and also show you my evolution in the scrapbooking world. So I'm going to start with my very first album, and I want to talk a little bit about my first album. I went to visit a friend who lived in a city about about an hour and a half away from me one summer. Went up for lunch, and she was an elementary school teacher, and she said to me, would you like to see my albums from my trip to Europe? She had been to Europe about a month before, and I said sure. I was expecting her to bring out photo albums. Well, what she brought out, which I later discovered, were called scrapbooks. Now, up to this point, to me, a scrapbook meant one of those old manila-paged kind of little albums that you stuck newspaper clippings in. I didn't know that there was a whole movement out there that was working on creative ideas for displaying their pictures from trips or family events and things like that. So I got looking through her album, and I thought, this is really cool. She's got all these little stickers and little titles and things like that. And of course, she was an elementary school teacher. I was a high school teacher. So high school teachers are famous for talking about elementary school teachers as doing nothing but cut and paste. And so I thought this is probably where this idea came from. So as I was admiring her albums and commenting upon the creativity that she had used in them, she says to me, would you like to meet the lady? I said, the lady? She says, yeah, my scrapbook lady. I said, okay, that might be interesting. So off we went to this lady's house. Now, this lady was a dealer for a scrapbooking system that was very popular at the time, and I'm not even sure if they exist anymore. You know, they're pretty old, so I'm not really sure if they're out there anymore. But it was called Creative Memories. And they had a whole system. They had albums and page protectors, and they had really cool cutting devices that would cut circles and ovals and squares and things like that. And I am very much into machines or gadgets, as you know. So this appealed to me. So after an hour with this lady and $450 later, I became a scrapbooker. Yes, I bought the starter kit for all of this, and it ended up costing me about $450. And I remember when I came home that day later and said to Walter, well, guess what I did? He just looked at me with skepticism in his mind. Now, the thing was, I had all these old pictures that had come from a couple of people who had passed away that were good friends of my parents. And I was thinking, well, maybe I could use some of these scrapbooking techniques to create a memory album for my parents of these people, since they were very close friends. And so that was really my first album, which I do not have here to show you because my mother has it, I guess, somewhere. Anyways, that's got me into the whole scrapbooking movement. And so I thought I'd share some of my very first efforts with you. Now remember, I was new to this, and this was back in 2002. So also in 2002, we went on our very first cruise, and it was a Carnival cruise to the Caribbean. And it was actually 2001, as you can see here, but it took me into 2002 to get this done. I'd had these pictures sitting around too. So you can see, pretty primitive. I did discover the wonders of vellum, and I put them through my computer. I always use my computer with most of my creative activities. It's just part and parcel of my whole thing about machines and using technology to help you create. I had a corner rounder, as you can see. I did the pages here, and I had some basic cardstock and did some framing. I did some cutting out, and I even got a little fancy here because this was actually a printed sheet of scrapbook paper, and I cut around the tree and tucked the picture underneath it. And so you can see this whole album I was experimenting with some creative techniques. Sorry about the glare. You know, I was doing a lot of cutting out, fussy cutting, and I wasn't very good at it, as you can tell. I even cut out, you know, from the pictures themselves to give it a little bit more of a 3D effect. Now, you can see this is in the days before I knew anything about pop dots or anything like that. I don't have any borders on my pages. And basically, I'm trying to get as many pictures on a page as I possibly can. And here's a good example of what I'm talking about right here. I just made this sort of collage of pictures on top of each other. Because my idea in those days was that you needed to get as many pictures on a page as you could in your album. Now, that philosophy has changed a great deal in today's modern scrapbooking, as you know. Oftentimes in today's modern scrapbooking, people only have 1 or 2 pictures on a page, and they use a lot of mixed media techniques to enhance it. So really, they move away from being a photo album with pretty stickers and things like that on it, and they've moved more into the realm of art pieces that could be actually framed and hung on a wall. But I'm ahead of myself, because this is still back in 2002 when I'm doing this kind of thing. But I loved it. And then I discovered there were stickers you could get, and so I started using a lot of stickers, and of course die cuts. Now this was before I did not have a die cutting machine. I didn't have a Cricut, anything like that. These were all pre-made, and I think they came, I think Creative Memories had packages you could buy about like organized under theme for this. Then I started to look at books about how to do scrapbooking pages and things like that. So here you see I'm cutting out people again on this. My composition is really not that good. It's pretty much, you know, I have some ovals. That was the thing about Creative Memories. You could cut these ovals and circles out, and that was about it. at the time. I did try my hand at something that was a kaleidoscope kind of effect. I think I bought a book about that. In those days too, I did do a fair amount of journaling. I got away from journaling as time went on. I don't enjoy journaling that much. But in those days, that was supposed to be the thing you needed to do. Again, you can see here. Now here, I started to rip paper. Another technique I probably picked up because at the time I was starting to take classes at the scrapbook store that was near me. It doesn't exist anymore, this particular scrapbook store, but I really enjoyed it. And just like now today with my quilting, I was at that scrapbook store every other day practically, and I took every class I could possibly get. So as time went on in this first album, you can see the different techniques that I tried. I tried this sort of shadow effect around the contouring around the picture, more die cuts, a little bit of twine, cutting pictures out to look like balloons because this was a happy birthday page. And it goes on from there. But as you can see, this album is all very, very primitive. I discovered mulberry paper at the time, which was this fibrous type of paper. I tried my hand at doing some vintage things. These are my grandparents, their wedding picture, and then next to that my grandmother on her 90th birthday. I started to do things with cards I got. I was looking at videos. Look, Quilter has hair. Yes. Yeah, lots of things that I did. And I did get into some three-dimensional elements here. These little doves. I tried my hand at sort of a freehand stained glass like look. When I look at this back now, I remember how much fun I really had doing these, but how primitive is this in terms of style? But I guess that's how you learn. Again, you can see some tags are now appearing in here as well. As I look at these, I just kind of cringe when I think about how juvenile the style was at the time. But, you know, that doesn't really matter. It was fun. Now, here's an example of what I was saying about using computer technology. These two pages are the same, except that on this page, these are the actual pictures. On this page, I changed this to do this little Photoshop effect on all the pictures. I don't know why I did that, but I did it. Again, I was being more influenced by color as time went by. So you can see I was learning how to pick up the colors from pictures to use as your backgrounds. And this one, I started trying my hand at what was called mosaic. And you cut all these little pieces out in 1-inch squares and put them all back together again. In fact, there was a whole system for this. I bought a special cutting mat, and it came with an X-Acto knife and a ruler and a book telling you how to do this in different ways. And I actually revisited this years later to actually create my own system, which I taught a class in. A lot of the pictures in here in these days were of my nephews and nieces when they were little. Now they're all grown up. This one is my oldest niece. She's now married. This is my second oldest niece. My oldest nephew, he's working in London, England right now. Sarah and William, both of them are finishing up their college education. And Samuel, the baby. And he's now, I think, about ready to graduate from high school and go to university. Then there were templates. I remember getting these fancy little templates, and I'm not even sure if I still have them. I think they're around here somewhere. But basically, you cut out with an X-Acto knife and then folded them back, and they gave you these neat frame effects. And then, of course, I got into embossing. And other tricky, I had some fancy punches that would punch out these corners so that you could lay your pictures into them. I think that was the first one I bought that did this, and then there was several more I bought after that that did specialty like shapes for corners. Here we have another technique that I used, just trying to do sort of a collage like effect, and so on. And this is actually, these are pictures taken from one of the crops at the scrapbooking store that I used to go to way back then that I said is no longer in business. It was a mega crop, and I used one of these fancy little flip out pieces right here, which was again something new. If it was new, I had to have it. And so that was my absolutely first album. So next week in my vlog, I'm going to grab maybe one of my more specialty albums, because I just started with these as general albums. Then as I did more traveling, as more things came up in my life, I started to do theme albums, and that's what we'll talk about next week. So with each week for the next little while, I'll be showing you different styles of scrapbooks I've made over time, different themes, and basically show you my evolution from what I just showed you there to basically what I ended up doing before I pretty much stopped doing scrapbooking. It's not because I don't like scrapbooking, it's just because I found the whole world of mixed media after that. And the other new segment that I've already mentioned that I'll take you to now is more of a process video, the first part of how I'm going to make this album using this kit from iCraft. So I'll insert the video right here. So I've decided to start a new segment to my vlogs where I'm going to actually do some crafting videos within the vlog itself. Now these will be projects that I'll do over a series of weeks, and I'm not sure if I'll get them completed or not, but that's my intent right now. So I've been thinking lately about making another journal. I haven't done any journal making for quite a while, and I've got a lot of supplies for this. So I went into my stash and I have come up with a whole lot of these journal inserts from Heartfelt Creations. I have quite a few of them, as you can see here. And I have made one of these journals once before, and it turned out pretty nice. But now I think I'm going to take these and combine them with other techniques for journal making. I have this one from a new company that my local scrapbook store is dealing with called iCraft, which basically makes a whole album. And I think I can combine these things together and create a journal. And I'm going to use some of my mixed media techniques as well. Now, I have a whole stack of Graphic 45 paper pads. I love Graphic 45. I was obsessed with them for a long time, and so these are just a few of them. These have not even been opened in most cases, but I love their style, and it seems a shame to leave them on a shelf just wasting away. So I've pulled up some of them, and this isn't by all means not all the Graphic 45s that I have, but I think I may mix elements as I work on the journal, and I will pull some of these things out. And some of these are like deluxe editions that have chipboard punch outs and letters and words as well to go with the paper style. So there's an awful lot of things to choose from. So in this first video, all I'm doing is showing you the supplies that I'm going to draw from. Now, I'm not going to necessarily use all of this. I won't use all of this. But let me get one of the journals that I did make using the Heartfelt Creations system, and I'll show that to you. So this was my first Heartfelt Creations album that I made. Heartfelt Creations came out with this system a couple of years ago, and it's really quite interesting, and it's fun to make. So I used a Graphic 45's pad for this, and I worked my way through. Now this did take some time, as you can see, and I made elements, I made pockets and things. I never had a real purpose for how I was going to use this album. I just enjoyed the process of making it. And that may be what this one that I'm going to do next will turn out to be. But you see, these are these little interactive elements, the ones I showed you that come in packages like this. Well, this is what they can create. And you use magnets too in a lot of cases to keep them closed, and that's what's in there. Some of them, like this little one, it flips down. And as I said, I really love the, here's an example of one that folds down, and then there's these little extra tags and things that go into it. Another one here, pocket. It's just a lot of fun to make these. And so I'm going to do a similar thing. Now I'm going to show you another album that I made some time ago. Again, I was using Graphic 45 in here. I've never finished the cover of this. Now, this has a totally different spine system. This is a spine system that was developed by, I can't remember her name, but she's on YouTube. The Hidden Hinge system, I believe it's called. And that's what I used to create this basic album to start with. So, usually, when I make an album, see this one I never finished. I was using the Cityscapes pad from Graphic 45, and I've never finished it. So there it is. But I'm going to start new. I'm not going to finish this one because my mind isn't set on this one at the moment. But I guess the first thing I need to do is create the actual album itself for holding the pages. And that's where I think I will use that package of this that I had purchased at the scrapbooking store back a couple of months ago. And on the back it shows you the different inserts that go into it. And it's essentially very much the same as the Heartfelt Creations, except it's a little bit less expensive than theirs. And this is a new company. So I might use that as my base, and then we'll build up from there. So we'll see how this goes. Do I have a purpose for this? Not really. I'm just going to let the colorful papers from Graphic 45 and the elements that they have speak for themselves. Because I really don't have any other purpose for it. I am not a journal writer, but I like creating them. So we'll see how this goes. So next week, hopefully, I will have started the process of making the basic album itself. Okay, so this week, as I work on this album, what I did during the week was I took each one of those pieces from the iCraft kit for making the album, and I scanned them into my computer. And then I imported them into my Cricut Maker, so now I can actually cut out from pattern paper each of the pieces. So you see, I've labeled each one of these just as a guide for myself. These would not be the actual pieces that I'd be putting into the album, but here's the front cover, and I include the score lines as well, because you can do that in a Cricut Maker. And then I have the front or the back cover, and this, anything that's white, I've labeled as an insert. So this would be an overlay on top of the basic background paper. What I'll probably be doing is I'll cut all the basic backgrounds and pages in black, and then I'll use the pattern paper, I'll cut it to lay on top. So I've done that for everything, the large and the small pocket, also with the score lines. This is an actual album page, and it has the score lines for that, and then this will be the insert that'll fit on this. I did not put the score lines on this. I made it about 1/4 of an inch all the way around smaller. So when I glue it, I can just go over the score lines in there as I fold it, and that should keep it in place. And then this is the small inserts and the enclosure. Now I didn't do an insert for over the pocket pages because getting the proportions right on that, because of the cutout that's here, was not working very well. But I think what I'll probably do is I will just cut a duplicate piece, score lines and all, and then I'll cut it off, all the score parts I'll cut off, and I'll just glue it right on top. Or either that, or what I'll do is I might just make the whole pocket just a solid piece without a border, and lay that in. So it'll have the score lines, it'll fold over, and if I want to make a bit of a border, I think I could probably go around the edges with some ink. So I have all of these are my templates now, and they're all in my Cricut Maker. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start cutting out the basic pieces for the album itself, the background pieces, and then I can cut the overlay pieces. So I've cut out the basic pieces for my album cover, the front and the back, and those were in two pieces, and I had the score lines. One of the things I found a little difficult was to see where my score lines were, because the Cricut Maker, although it's got a scoring tool, does not do a really great job of making really strong score lines. Now, it does have a rotary scoring tool, but that doesn't seem to work when you're just cutting cardstock. That seems to be for heavier materials, and I'm not sure how to make that work with, even if I can, make it work with a lighter cardstock. But nevertheless, I could visually see them, so I just took my ruler, put them up against the score line, and folded the paper over accordingly. Now, how did I assemble this? Well, I didn't use glue. Glue will warp, or most glues will warp your cardstock a little bit. So what I like to use is a good quality double-sided tape, and this is Sukwang tape, which is very, very strong. This is the 1/2 inch size, this is the 1/4 inch size, and I just put a strip of that down on the little fold here that attaches the back cover to the front. I don't know if you can see the outline of that. And I use my bone folder as well to go over it to make sure it makes a good contact. I did the same, only with the 1/4 inch tape on the flap that holds the book together. And you'll also notice I've added a magnet here and here, and this will serve as a closure. Now right now this is a little bit limp because there's nothing in it, but that's what that is there for. And what will happen is I put those on now, because when I put my decorative paper on top of this, it'll hide the magnets. So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to cut out the decorative papers for the front and the back cover, the inside, the outside, and the spine, and this flap, and assemble that and show you what that looks like. And that'll give you an idea of how I'm going to be doing this entire album. Now I have my overlay pieces all cut for my cover, and what I want to do though is I want to go around all the edges with a little bit of ink, and I'm going to use the Stays On brown ink for this, because Stays On will not come off on your hands once it is dry. If I use distress inks on this, they would be more prone to be reactivated by any kind of moisture, like moisture from your hands or just if it gets wet, whereas this won't. So show you what I mean here, what I'm going to do. I'm just getting my ink applicator well stocked up with ink, and then I'm just going to take it and I'm just going around the edges. Now this is subtle, it's more like a shading, but it'll just make it look a little bit more finished when I'm done. And I intend to do this with all of my pieces, not just the cover pieces, but also the page pieces and any inserts as well. I find it just gives it a nice vintage look, and at the same time makes it stand out just a little bit more from the background, even though that the background is black. So I'm just going to take a couple of minutes here to do all of my pieces for the cover, and I'll come back and show you how I'm going to install these. Okay, so now I have all of my pieces inked, and I'm going to work on the inside of the album cover. So I'm going to start with the flap, because the flap is going to go underneath the cover pages that are inside here. So I want to cover those up first. So I'm going to grab one of these, and it doesn't matter what side I use particularly. I think I will use this side. And I realized something here, that this is actually too long. And the reason for that is because I think what I did was I had made One that was going to be the insert to go on top of this and leave a border all the way around it, and the other was the actual flap. And I think what I did was I ended up cutting out the smaller of the two pieces. But that's okay, because no one's going to see this part. I could cut this off if I wanted to, but I don't think I'll bother. It just gives it more support. So I'm working on the inside first, and I've decided to use a wet glue, and I'm going to use Tombow Aqua, because out of many of the glues that I have used over time, I have found that the Tombow Aqua tends to not wrinkle the paper as much. I could use double-sided tape all the way around, but I want this to have a really good seal, because this is going to get opened up and closed a lot. So I just want to make sure that there's glue on, a good application of glue. And I want to make sure I get all the edges. So you'll notice that I am doing this on my non-stick craft mat, because it'll just roll up right off that. Okay. This also gives me a little bit more wiggle room when I line it up, as opposed to the double-sided tape. Double-sided tape, once you lay something down on it, you don't have any wiggle room whatsoever to move it about. Okay, flip this over. Now I have a little bit of overhang up here on the end, but I can trim that off, but I'm not going to bother right now. I'll wait until I get this part on, and then I'll just maybe do a little bit of trimming if I don't get it quite even. And give it a good rub, and I like to use my bone folder for this too, just to press it all in. And now you see that the little magnet piece has now been covered up as well on this side. Just put my cap on the glue here, and I'm just going to grab a baby wipe because I want to wipe up some of that. There we go. Non-stick craft sheet are wonderful inventions. If you don't have one, get one. And I just want to grab a paper towel, which is off camera, just to wipe up the moisture from the baby wipe. And now let's see if I've got any pieces hanging out. I do, just by a hair, so I'm just going to trim that off. The other side looks pretty good. Okay. Now we can work on the inside, and these are going to be my inside parts. And these I cut down a little smaller, so I leave a little bit of a border around, and I have the spine piece as well. And these I am going to use the double-sided tape for. So just show you how to go about this. I get it as close to the edge as I possibly can, because you don't want the edges coming up. Of course, I got a little bit of a wrinkle in that one, but that's not a problem. Excuse me. And I'm going to lay a piece diagonally across the center as well. Now, before I peel off the protective backing, I always go over it with my bone folder just to make sure it's well adhered to this page. And then I peel off the backing. Now, I use a little paper piercer for this because I don't have any fingernails. If you've got fingernails, you probably can get a hold of the edge of this. And believe me, this Sukwang double-sided tape is extremely sticky. So now we've got to be careful when we lay this down because we want to get it to align as close to center, because once you lay it down you cannot get it up again. Okay, that looks pretty good. Again, I'll take my bone folder to this to make sure I've got a good adhesion. And I'm going to do the same thing on this part, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the back, and I'll be back to show you the final version. Okay, so I have my album cover done in terms of just putting the basic structure together and putting on some decorative paper on the outside. Now, of course, I'm going to embellish this when I get all the pages inside it with some other things. But I do have a couple of things to point out to you that has some mishaps off camera. One, my magnet was not strong enough to go through these, so I put a couple of Velcro dots on here to seal it. Here's what the interior looks like right now. Also, I intended for this piece of paper to be my cover page and this to be my back page. Well, I got them reversed. But you know, that's not going to give me much of a problem because I am going to be embellishing this anyway, so this is just background paper for the time being. So I also added a little bit of glue onto the back of each of these Velcro dots because although they are self-sticky, I find they don't hold that well. So I just put a little of the Tombow glue that I was using onto the back of each of these, and that should hold them in place as time goes by. Another thing that you might want to note is at first the album's going to seem a little limp, okay, but it does get stronger as you add more layers of paper to it. So right now the basic cardstock that's under here is just your standard cover stock weight, but by adding the sheets of decorative paper to the inside and the outside, it's now getting a little bit more substance to it. And once I get the pages in here, it will have a lot more substance to it. And just speaking of the pages that are going inside and what I'm using as overlays, I didn't show you the Graphic 45 pad that I'm using. And I'm using the Deluxe Collector's Edition of the one they call Communique, or K. Communique or Communique. I think that's how you say it. This is what I'm using, but I may not have enough in this set to do the whole album, so I may intermix it with another set as well, and that's okay. It makes it look, I think, more interesting. Also, don't throw away your scraps when you're working on the project. I've taken these, I've trimmed off the ones that are too small to use, and I just dropped them into a page protector, and I may need to come back to some of these when I'm embellishing the album itself. Okay, so on the next video, I'm going to show you the interior pages. So I hope you'll enjoy the process going through it with me and making an album. It's getting my mojo back a little bit into my roots in paper crafting as well, because one of my goals this year is to do a little bit more in the paper crafting area. I really spent a lot of time last year once I discovered quilting, and I still love quilting, but it was taking me away from the other things that I love, so I need a balance. And so this is my attempt to start to balance things out creatively. Okay, so events in the past week. Update on my mom. She's doing okay. We had a little bit of a tiff last week or so. I'm not going to get into it, but everything's fine now. It basically stemmed around the fact that she can't stand her roommate again. And they did try to find her another room, but it was not very suitable for my mother. And my mother decided she was going to stay put. And that's good. But she's doing okay. And yeah, so we'll just leave it at that. We had New Year's Eve at the club. We call it the clubs, basically called Club 717. It is a gay club that we have out here in our area. Yeah, we should have stayed home. New Year's Eve was very boring, and I go into a fair amount of detail about why it was that boring on Stephen and Walter Live. So if you're interested in finding that out, you can check that out. But needless to say, we hadn't been there in probably over 12 years. And yeah, it was sort of your trailer trash New Year's Eve sort of party. I mean, I shouldn't really say that about it. I mean, they tried their best, okay, for this kind of thing. And that glare on my glasses is driving me nuts. I don't know why. It's there. But anyways, but as Walter said, at one point, we could have had a better time if we just stayed at home, put on Rockin' New Year's Eve from New York City and had a bottle and drank a bottle of champagne. And he was right about that. So anyways, such was New Year's. Already told you about the art journaling class. That went over really well. Everybody had a good time in that. And several of the ladies are signing up for the big crop in May that the Class Act Scrapbook store that we have the art journaling class in is holding. It's their first crop ever on this kind of scale. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm all signed up for it. And a lot of the ladies in the mixed media or the art journaling class are signing up too. Some have never been to a crop before, so this will be a new experience for them. But since they're very comfortable with our group, we'll all probably sit together at this. So it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to that. And let's see, what's coming up? I've got a meeting of the Quilting Guild tomorrow night in a new location. I think I mentioned that before, that they moved from the school board offices into a local church that has recently renovated its sanctuary, so it's a multi-use type of room. And I think it'll be a better place. It's going to be a bigger meeting hall. And so I'm looking forward to that. And I think I'll take my modern quilt, which you have seen already, and do that as a show and share. And I have a meeting this week at Strathaven. That's the name of my mother's nursing home. This is what they call their post-entry meeting. They usually do it 6 to 8 weeks after a person has been admitted. And I guess we go over, you know, her status. And I have a list of questions that I want to ask them. I pretty much know the answers to these questions, but I want to make them aware that I'm thinking about these things as well. But I mean, I don't have any complaints with this nursing home. They've been excellent. The help there is just top notch, really. It's the best place my mother could be in right now with all of that. So, but I just want to go over a few little things with them, and I imagine they want to go over a few little things with me. So, and of course on Saturday, Ultimate Sewing is having their open house, which is when they reveal all the upcoming classes for the next session. I don't know how many we're going to sign up for. We won't see the list of classes until Friday night. That's how she does it, the owner of it. She sends it out on Friday night after about 6 o'clock as an email. And then you can look over them and come prepared to sign up. It's a bit of a zoo for signing up, and I have discussed that with you back vlogs ago with it. But because we're going away, 2 trips in that period of time as well, not sure how many classes we'll be able to sign up, but we'll see what they have to offer and how that works into our schedule. So that's coming up on Saturday, and that's the week. And we got to start thinking about packing for Florida. Not that there's a lot of packing to do. I find now when we go on trips, we take less and less, which is good. Especially, you know, the airlines are not that accommodating. They charge you for baggage and everything else. And, you know, I definitely will only take 1 small suitcase. That's all I ever take. But I want to have room in my suitcase to bring back possibly some fabric or things from Fort Lauderdale when we're down there. And of course you have the weight limitation, so you got to be aware of all of that. And actually fabric does You wouldn't think it weighs that much, but it does. It starts to add up. So we got to get together, get their things all planned out for that. So that brings us up to what's going to happen while we're in Florida. Now we're only there for 8 days. I do intend to have a vlog next Monday, and actually next Monday later in the afternoon we will be driving to the airport. We have a hotel room there for overnight because our flight leaves the next day for Fort Lauderdale, so we're going to stay at the airport. But I'll still, and I always do my vlogs on Monday mornings, so I will still be able to get my vlog in for then. Stephen and Walter Live will be on at 4 o'clock this Sunday coming as usual. But then that brings us down to, will I be doing a vlog and a Stephen and Walter Live from Florida? And the answer is maybe. It's going to depend on what we have for an internet connection and the speed of it and all that kind of stuff at the place we're going to be staying in. So we'll see. So if you don't hear from me after Monday, this next Monday coming up, then you know we couldn't do it. But I will be taking some video, and I'll probably put together a little video presentation to include in my vlog when I do make the next vlog. But we'll see how that goes. It'll be cool if I can actually do a live stream from Florida, from Fort Lauderdale. Okay, so that's the week that was, and I hope you have a really good week, and thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you possibly next Sunday for Stephen and Walter Live, and my next vlog, which will be a week from today. See you then. Bye-bye.